Thank you for auditing the always positive new music review show hosted by a French professor who can't give up on these clickbait titles. Why do I even do them? Well, see, I do it because it's provocative, because it gets you in. It's the superficial nonsense which will hopefully lure you into some very deep analysis. It's based on the theories of Jean de La Fontaine and his fables to please and instruct. And in this case, I'm talking about Lil Simz and her new album, No Thank You, and I need to remind you that rap is a competitive art. So whenever I say things like the things I'm about to say, that's why. See, Lil Simz is doing what Lauryn Hill couldn't. Lil Simz is a perfect English homologue to SZA, this R&B hybrid of modern womanhood and humanity. And I would say that her work with producer Inflow is of a higher quality than that of Hit Boy and Nas, and is exceeding in quantity, although just as high in quality as Danger Mouse and Black Thought with their most recent album. If you want to find out why I think this, keep watching. If you want to just dislike and leave a nasty comment, you can do that too. But let me explain. The Lauryn Hill comparison. I've been comparing Lil Simz to Lauryn Hill ever since I listened to Drop 6. That was the first project that I ever listened to by her. And she co-produced most of the songs, and it seemed to me like she might be the heir apparent. I was actually a little bit disappointed by sometimes I might be introverted, but still, what did she do that Lauryn Hill couldn't do? She kept it together, and I don't think that's Lauryn Hill's fault. I think you should watch FD Signifier's video about Lauryn Hill. I'll put a link in the description. I don't think it's really her fault, but she couldn't keep it together with all that pressure, all that anger, sexism, racism, all of that. Okay? So she's a lot like Lauryn Hill in the way that she appeals to a sense of international womanhood. She's very positive while at the same time having the sharp edge of a real rap artist. Anti-colonial, pro-black, anti-racist, anti-classist. But, that her last album from last year got all these applauds, like everyone loved it. And it was good. But I didn't think it was what she could do. And this album, No Thank You, I think is actually her potential. I think this far surpasses Sometimes I Might Be Introverted. And what's cool is it's a surprise. It came out of nowhere. She released it on a Tuesday. Old school, as opposed to on a Friday. And this cover is a perfect example. The cover to Sometimes I Might Be Introverted is a very staged photo, very sort of airbrushed and photoshopped and all that stuff. This one is just a frank picture of her staring at you. Natural, strong, and confrontational. Which is exactly what she's doing on this album. Now, I also compared in my opening salvo her to SZA, whose album came out last week. And I think both of them are showing the importance to fight for humanity. That being a woman of color dehumanizes you in public discourse. Dehumanizes you when you're famous, when you're not famous, and they're both fighting for that in very different spaces, in very different places. Okay, they don't have the same approach at all. They're not similar, except that they're blending together R&B and hip-hop. They happen to have a sort of similar target. And I think it's interesting to have these albums coming out at the same time. Now, my most controversial thing is saying that Inflow and Lil Simz are better than Hit Boy and Nas. And I'm just... every time I provoke Nas fans, I get like thousands of views. So thank you, Nas fans. I love Nas. I do. And I love the work that he's doing with Hit Boy. And the thing is, when Hit Boy and Nas released back-to-back classic albums, it's like, who's ever done this? Who's ever released this many great albums in such short order? Who's gone with one producer and one rapper, one conscious yet very hard rapper with a virtuosic producer? Who's ever done that? And the answer is, Lil Simz did it with Inflow. Like, it's crazy. Sometimes I Might Be Introverted, even though I found it disappointing compared to what I wanted it to be, is still a great album. And this album, this is the magic of their work together. This is that surprise album that I think is the best of all of them. Now, perhaps the most controversial saying is that it is of the same quality as this album by Black Thought and Danger Mouse. I don't think it's better or worse. I think it's of the similar quality. And the main reason is this production and the rapping is just, it's sort of perfect. Like I said, that album is perfect, and this is basically the same thing. Except what Danger Mouse does is he's just a great rap producer. What Inflow does, no one's doing. Not that I can tell. as far as I can tell, because there's a weird sort of exchange that happened in the world where a lot of musicians who maybe would have gone on to be virtuoso musicians and songwriters instead went into hip hop or electronic music making, right? So we sort of had this loss of musicianship in general, moving towards more technologically aided forms of music. Neither good nor bad, okay? It's just a difference. But it's weird because rap music is all based on rhythm. So the idea that there hasn't been some great drummer to come in and be the absolute mastermind. Okay, Questlove, fine, there's been one. But even Questlove, I don't think as a drummer and as a producer really reaches these heights. I'm not super hard on that. Feel free to contradict me in the comments if you think that Questlove is just as good. But what Questlove is able to do and what Inflo is able to do is when you are the captain of the ship and your primary thing is drums, it's sort of like that's what hip-hop should be. Like every great drummer should be a hip-hop producer because it's amazing to hear what can happen. But Inflo goes one step further on this album. This is, again, I don't know of any other rap artist who uses orchestras as well as Inflo. I talk all the time about 4A, right? Something that is good for this is a good rap artist for a YouTuber, right? When I was talking about Quadeca, when really he's just a good artist. He is just a good orchestral music producer. Not for a rap artist, not for a drummer. This is the best orchestra use I've ever heard in rap most of the time. 99.9% of the time. I think just keep the strings and the horns out of hip-hop. It doesn't work. It sounds like you're trying to go for gravitas when you don't need to go for gravitas. Hip-hop doesn't need validation from non-hip-hop sources. But it all works so well. And I don't know, maybe it's because Inflo has also been working with Adele, and, that Adele album was good. Maybe he's been picking up something, like working at that level of fame and success, or maybe he's just this good. So we have an amazing orchestration with incredible, subtle drumming driving everything. And we finally have real virtuosity in a rap album that's matched with Lil Simz rhyming. Now, I can hear some of you mad. I'm not saying Lil Simz is better than Nas. I don't think she is as a rapper, right? I mean, I'm not saying she's like, top 10 of all time. But she's ridiculously good, and especially in the lane of conscious rap. Conscious rap has very little shoulder to drive on, okay? Like, if you're a non-conscious rapper and you do something and it's kind of corny or kind of bad, like when you're driving on the highway, there's like 15 feet of shoulder where you hit the rumble strip and then you get back on the highway. If you're a conscious rapper and you do something corny, immediately there's no shoulder. You are off the cliff. You are like in one of those movies where people drive off the cliff and the car blows up. It's not fair. I don't think it's right, but I'm right. Okay, so if you're going to be conscious, if you're going to be talking about racism and class and sexism, and you're going to be doing it very forward, very clearly, you have to really nail it, or else you sound too preachy or too corny. And what she's able to do is what other great conscious rappers have been able to do. The great ones, okay? Like Chuck D. Like Nas when he chooses to be, okay? Like, just finding that balance between hardness and social justice. So she's able to get around all of that. And that's what makes this album so exciting and why I think it really is her potential realized with this album. So I'm going to give you a stamp, click above the ever-growing plant behind me, if you want to hear the song Gorilla. My next video is my year-end wrap-up, okay? The Stampies, the best albums of the year. I don't know if this is going to make it. It might. But if I were to have a best rap song of the year, Gorilla might be it. It is everything that Lil Simz and Inflo do on this album completely correctly. Huge symphonic start. And you get the sense that there's going to be this huge, big, orchestral zip. It cuts right out. And then the beat is essentially an interpolation of Kick in the Door by Notorious B.I.G. boom, 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 boom. It's awesome, but it's not. It's not the exact same notes, but it's that feeling. That feeling of the beat, the kick in the door, wave in the 4/4. All you hear is Papa Don't hitting them. Like that's what you feel in this beat. But it's all played by Inflo. Inflo is playing the drums, and it matters. It matters that it's not just some studio musician. It's the guy who's making the beat. Meanwhile, this rap is just like Lil Simz. I sort of dismissed her as being a top 10 of all time. You can make an argument that she's top 10 of right now. Definitely. With the master of cadence and her flow and pronunciation, like she'll go a little bit faster, a little bit slower. She really plays a lot with British pronunciation. You know, like I'll give you an example, right? So it starts off with the Sim Simma line, which goes to Beanie Man, but also, you know, Sim Simma, who got the keys to the bimmer. She throws in a Jamaican swear, which I'm not going to say now. And, you know, I obviously thought of Beep Beep, who's got the keys to the Jeep, Missy Elliott, you know, another great female rap artist. But what's interesting is when she starts rhyming in the beginning, she's just rhyming hard with these absent R's, okay? Just like where you should pronounce an R, she doesn't. And then on the back half of the verse, she starts pounding the R's super hard and overpronunciating, like I am right now, every single word that she's saying in a style which is very reminiscent to me of Missy Elliott. Run through the jungle, they never should have let her. Cuts and wounds, I hope will never fester. Yeah, big art collector, silent investor, film director. Beating on my chest, going ape-ish, putting on the great-ish. Ain't life what you make it? Yeah, it is. It's just a great, great verse. And then it's interrupted with this orchestra. And listen to the drumming in this interstitial bit. It is these. So my son's a drummer, right? He's a very good drummer. He's a much better drummer than I am. And I was like, Django, listen to this. Just listen to this. It's like unbelievable. It's all these beautifully played fills, just perfect. So you're blinded by the orchestra, but if you're listening carefully, you hear just beautiful. Coming in with another verse, funny, strong, hard, find an agony aunt and start venting. Don't ask my opinion on ish just to make you feel good. Because making you feel good about yourself is exhausting. Awesome. A weird backwards bit thrown into the beat, almost out of nowhere. And then she has this whole little bit about like red light when I'm recording, red light for all the informants. You know, like she's just super proud and super strong. And the thing is, there's this orchestral ending, and there's one thing that Lil Simz refuses to do. This young woman will never drop the mic, okay? The entire album, you think, okay, you killed us, you did it, we're done, we're on the floor, you wrapped circles around everybody, you're sitting there, you went after everybody, we have a great outro, and then she pops up like Michael Myers in the third act of a Halloween movie, and she's like, oh, I'm not done, I'm just going to rap some more rappy raps to you. That's how she talks. And you know, she just goes right after you and comes at you again with some more killer bars. Now this time it's only 4 bars about like mi amor and adore, but for the rest of the album, you always think she's done. You think she's dropped the mic because she could have dropped the mic, but she comes back to kill you again. Rap is a competitive art. I say it all the time. It's important to remember. It's part of its strength. It is not a weakness. I don't compare rock bands. I don't compare classical composers because those are not competitive arts. Rap absolutely is. Your goal, like a comedian, is to kill. And Lil Simz, with this whole album, is like, oh, I'm going to get all the plaudits and all the, I don't know, Mercury prizes, whatever they give out in England. You know, all the crumpets, the golden crumpets. What do you call the music awards in England? You know, like yeah, she won all those, but she is not done. She is just going to keep going. So let's go through the rest of the album a little bit quicker. I will say on this conscious thing, do we think that England has the best conscious rappers, at least in English? Is America too capitalistic to support conscious rappers in the mainstream? Because if we take just like Dave and Lil Simz, we have 2 great artists who are very active and very relevant in the mainstream. And in general in America, you're allowed to be a little bit conscious, but don't get too conscious. You better start talking about money again really soon. I don't know. There's a chance that America is losing in this war because we don't have enough of a social mindset. We're too individualistic. Tell me in the comments if you agree with that idea. I think it's dope. It's a dope idea. Smash the like bucket if you think that's a dope idea. Or in a comment say, hey, Professor Sky, that is a dope idea. Okay? The great thing is I read every single comment, but I also forget every single thing I ever say. I record these videos and I throw them up. I don't edit. I don't remember anything I say. So when you say that's a dope idea, I'll be like, what's this person talking about? So if you want to confuse a future Professor Sky, just tell me in the comments, that's a dope idea. I'll have no idea. I already forgot what I was saying. Okay, going through the rest of the album a little bit quicker. Angel. Now starts off with the song Angel, first track. What I like is it's a very kind of British beat. Like, by that I mean like the bass drum is not the 808 bass drum. It's a drum machine. It's kind of a tame kick sound. Develops kind of nicely. And then we have the appearance of someone named Cleo Sol, who sings multiple times on here. And the first time listening, the first time she comes in, I was like, ew, get your singing off my rap album. We'll watch how it goes. Some nice orchestral development. Then again, it stops. I'm going to say this again. Kanye West is... the human being is gone. Okay? The sunken place, La La Land, doesn't matter. He is gone. He is not on the planet Earth. Okay? He's not even on an astral plane. The human being is gone. But the artist is everywhere. There's so much gospel in modern hip hop that's coming out of nowhere that he just opened up the door. And I remember thinking, listening to Jesus is King, this is no one, how are we going to just, it's everywhere. But what I like about here is that there is, I think, sympathy for Ye in this verse. Now, I don't think she's directly defending anything that Ye has said. But the sad thing is that Ye actually has a point that artists are manipulated and robbed. There's a real, that's true. That's been true for as long as there have been record companies, right? He's just wrong because he makes it anti-Semitic and he's got a bunch of grifters in his ear and worm tongues, right? But this is what she says. See how an artist can get tainted, frustrated. They don't care if your mental is on the brink of something dark as long as you're cutting someone payslip and you're sending their kids to private school in a spaceship. Yeah, I refuse to be on a slave ship. Lil Simz has just said in 6 bars what Ye has been trying to say for the past 4 years and what he has failed to say completely. So, she plays with her accent, refers to someone as a brava. My British accent is so good, by the way. Leave another like if my British accent is so good. And then she trails off in the last verse. And I remember listening to it the first time being like, wow. I mean, she's going to do the Ye thing of trailing off in your last verse. Okay, that's fine. And then Cleo comes back. Now this time, I like her. I don't know why. Something happened in between the first time she came on and this time. And then I looked it up, and it turns out she's half Jamaican, half Serbian Spanish. So, that's cool. As you know, my wife is Serbian. So, you don't have a lot of Jamaican-Serbian crossover. It's a lot of culture in those two countries. There's not a lot of overlap, so pretty interesting. And, so she's done. So Lil Simz is done. Just kidding. Michael Myers is right behind me, okay? I stabbed him 37 times in the neck, and he bled out, and he's right behind me. And he's about to do that thing where he just steps up and looks at me with that William Shatner face. How do you go against the same system you were colonized by? Opening line. Beautiful. You think she's done? No, I've got 9 more songs in the boot for them. Boot means trunk in English. And then she quotes this whole thing. Flo and I coming like De Niro and Scorsese. Stop trying to box me in. There's no way you can place me. Hit him with a classic, then I got a little lazy. Had to get a pen when I remembered that I'm Jay-Z. Now the Nas fans are triggered. She called herself Jay-Z. Not really. Jay-Z is totally comfortable not having a... Well, first of all, he doesn't use a pen, so it's actually maybe not the best line. Because he memorizes everything, right? But still. But I just love this idea of De Niro and Scorsese. It's a little bit elevated. It's understanding the relationship between director and actor, and it is how it feels. And again, I'm being provocative with comparing it to Hit Boy and Nas, but instead of thinking of it as a competition, which it is, but it's also not, right? I don't think, I don't think Lil Simz is sitting there being like, right, I'm going to take out Nas, right? I don't think that's happening. But we just need to celebrate what's happening here. These wonderful producers working with rappers and creating so much great stuff in such a short period of time. Just great. Then we get to The Stamp, Gorilla. Still, again, maybe the best song of the year. You can excuse the sound above. Probably my baby is getting its diaper changed. That's the realness you come here to watch. Silhouette is the next song. I'm just going to say this. I don't know. Okay, I do know. It's because I'm a dumb American. Okay? I'm a dumb American, and I can't help but every time I hear something British, think about James Bond. Now stop. Just, you can dislike and leave. That's fine. But there's certain intervals between notes that make things feel like a James Bond song. There's certain bombasticness to orchestral arrangements that make it feel like a James Bond song. And we're dealing with Inflo, who worked with Adele. So I don't think I'm crazy. At times I get a sort of James Bond feel. Side note, everyone's wondering who's going to be the next James Bond. You know? Like, oh, maybe they'll go against type and cast Idris Elba. I got a better idea. He's dead. Never come back. Dead. He blew up. F James Bond. Stupid, imperialistic garbage. I enjoy the hell of it. Octopussy was one of my favorite movies growing up. But still, put it in a hole, burn it, blow it up. Don't make it, oh, it's going to be a black person. It'll be a gay person. No, just let it go. It was a bad thing. It was a bad time. Not everything. We don't need to resuscitate everything. Anyways, so at times this reminded me of that series, which I obviously have a conflicted opinion of. So many nice layers, super badass again. Again, you understand the way the drums are being played here, that it is a drummer in charge. The singer comes back and then it gets like a full gospel. It starts talking about God and stuff. I'm going to talk later about the relationship between God and this. I never knew how much I needed to set some boundaries. There's a general theme throughout this whole album of Lil Simz as being somebody who is in therapy, who is in good, positive therapy to make herself feel better. Returning to my good point, Sky, about England being better than America at conscious rap, I think this might be why. You know, Dave, his album Psychodrama, much better than this one that followed, but I still think he has a lot of great albums in his future. I think the last one was kind of a miss, but like he talks, you know, like mental health is like super important, right? And especially when dealing with trauma. And we're seeing rappers all the time. Right now, we are in a cultural moment where the importance of mental health is finally being emphasized for people who are not looking like me, people who do not have the luxury. Finally, we are starting to de-luxury mental health. That's the hope, right? That mental health is no longer just the purview of those who can afford to take an hour off of work to go get an hour's worth of therapy, right? Or therapy, as they might call it in the South End of London. So this whole song and this whole album is infused with that. So her talking about boundaries, that's what that is. That's what you learn in therapy. You need to have strong boundaries with people. You just can't let them walk over you. And actually, you're helping the other people that you're with because you're having better relationships with them when you have boundaries with them. You're not hurting them, you're helping them because you're strengthening your relationship. And this really interesting idea of, I don't want to live my life being a silhouette. That's what she says, you know? It's a deep idea. I think what bothered me about sometimes I might be an introvert is it felt like she was trying to do something important. It felt like, right, I'm going to make the most important album in the whole wide world, right? Like that was the impression that I got. And if you don't absolutely nail that, and some people think that she did, right? But if you don't absolutely nail that, it can be a little bit off. So I think the freedom of this, much like why I think Magic is better than the rest of the King's Disease series, is like free yourself from the constraints of that ambition, and you might actually hit the ambition anyway. I realized at this point that the drum beat that's being played is essentially, in the same way that they recreated the Kick in the Door beat, that is what the song's called, right? Is it called Kick in the Door, or does it have some other name? I don't know. I never know the names of any Biggie songs. I just had them on a cassette tape. Okay, boomer. I think this is just the funky drummer beat. The James Brown funky drummer beat. Played by Clyde Stubblefield. The greatest drum beat of all time. And it's not even close. It's just the most beautiful, wonderful drum break and beat. This is essentially a slight change, a slight variation on the funky drummer beat, which is great because that is the most sampled song, I believe, in rap history, the most sampled drum beat of all history. Right? That drum beat. And then we get this gospel. Time will heal you. Find your faith. The man is dead. The art lives. And then a crazy break with an orchestra and then like drumline drums. And Inflow is just messing with you at this point. He's just messing with you. He's like, all right, let's just do an orchestra. You know what? I'm not going to drop the mic either. I'm not going to drop the sticks. You thought that I was done making a beautiful rap song that you didn't expect could work with this much orchestra and this much gospel, while also being a badass rap song with really good, strong lyrics. You thought I couldn't do more than that? Actually, let's have some like Brazilian style drumline music. I don't even know what country he's going for here. He's nuts. The next song, No Merci, double entendre. First of all, I'm recording this about 20 minutes after France lost the World Cup. I love France. I love the French team. I love what it says about the reality of immigration in Europe. I thought that if France won, as I always say, it is a victory for Europe as being a place which is greatly benefited by African immigration. And sports is a symbol of that. It is not the totality of that. And music is a symbol of that as well. Okay? I mean, the reality is just that open cultures, open borders is better for the entire world. Period. So, I'm very upset that France lost the World Cup. But, as I always say every time one of my sports teams loses a game, you can't lose art. Put your faith into art. Put your faith into music, into movies, into art. Put your faith into interior design. You can't lose, okay? So it doesn't matter. France can lose 10 times in a row. We still have this beautiful album. That was my excuse to talk about the game. No Merci is a funny joke because it's playing on the fact that mercy comes from the French word merci, which means mercy. So it's really weird. It's really weird how often you hear, like, thank you in French is mercy. And that's a funny idea. And again, this is the benefit of having European rappers, right? I mean, I guess England's not a part of Europe anymore. Way to go, England. Sorry. It's not your fault. If you're watching this, you're probably not a Brexiteer. But still, you know, the knowledge of other cultures and other languages, it's a very interesting, fun double entendre. And then we get sort of like whiny sounds, more modern style bass drums here. And a very strong political message. Given them our truth, they gave us blackface. You want to make a mockery of my pain. Way too long we've been carrying the shame. If we knew we had magic, would we put needles in our veins? That's that selling us a lie-ish. Keep us low, then we get high quick. Just, again, this is essentially like drugs are bad and poor people do drugs because they're poor. Black people do drugs because of racism, right? Like that's a very easy to mess up. Like the way I just said it makes me uncomfortable. So, I mean, obviously I shouldn't be saying it. I regret it. I'm not going to edit it out. Feel free to tell me in the comments that I shouldn't have said it. But that's essentially reducing what she is saying to plain speak. But she delivers it so well and with such sincerity and such like talent, like to tie the connection between truth, blackface, mockery of pain. And the mockery of pain is what leads to it. You know, I mean, this is well established that, for example, doctors do not take the pain of people whose skin is darker as seriously as they take the pain of patients whose skin is lighter. That's not politics. That's not being woke. That is looking at the hard-ass data. That is just the data. If you are black, you are expected to withstand more physical pain. I mean, what kind of world, you know? That's terrible. That sucks, okay? And it's interesting that she makes this tie essentially between the refusal to accept that people with darker skin can feel pain with the need to self-medicate. It is very profound, very deep, very well said. Going back to these kind of Ye-like statements, this frustration that she has about being rich and making money for other people. Everyone here getting money off my name. Irony is I'm the only one not getting paid. I mean, this is, this goes back to the Beatles, right? I mean, Taxman, the best album of, maybe top 3 albums of all time, starts off with an absolute clunker, all about how much they hate taxes. Cool, weird little keyboard interstitial bits here. A pitched up, again, Ye style sample, and then a totally different, out of left field, different part at the end. Totally different. This nice kind of soulful part, which reminds me of actually how it shifts to there's one very soulful song towards the end, like R&B style modern soul, that is only that. And this feels like this is creating a sort of connection. Great albums do this, where they hint at a motif or a sound or an atmosphere, and they hint at it, and then it pays off later. And that's what they do here. And it's a very efficient trick. And again, you thought that she's done, but she just keeps getting up. She just keeps getting up. She talks about being only human. Again, this is tying into SZA. You are not their savior, which ties into Kendrick. I'm mentioning all these top dogs for a purpose, which is reminding you that this call for mental health in the black community, for taking black pain seriously, internationally, this is an international movement. This is not about African Americans. Lil Simz is not an African American, okay? But there is this universal problem. It is an international problem. And the international problems are the most interesting ones. The international problems of labor, sexism, racism. But I like it because it's emphasizing the need for humanity, which is what SZA is emphasizing, and just realizing that you're not their savior. Lil Simz is great. She's awesome. But she's not the savior of anybody. She's just pointing out problems and bringing attention to it and making great art. Next song is X, kind of a cool killer loop here. This sort of reminds me the most of a song off of Miseducation of Lauryn Hill. Very anti-colonial in a weird way, okay? This super epic beat, more gospel, more orchestra, inflow just going wild. Running 'cause you want freedom, don't die chasing. This post-apocalyptic where we stand. You want to give us the Bible and have us give up the land. They will dangle the carrot when nothing's in your hand. So, okay, this is correctly pointing out that colonizers very often use the Bible as a way to better subjugate people, right? That is correctly pointed out. The problem is, again, she's done, drops the mic, picks up the mic, kills you again. And then there's this gospel bit at the end with like a high school choir and some good percussion. But the gospel bit talks about like finding God and believing in God. And this is the whole... There is no good way to resolve this problem. This is not a problem that hinges on Christianity. This is a problem that exists in humanity. But most of the colonizers of Africa were Christians. Okay, fine, I understand. Okay, my son's going to get pissed at me for saying that because he's going to talk about, oh, the Muslims in the 7th century. Okay, many colonizers used Christianity as a way to subjugate people. In America, as an example, Christianity was used to try to better manipulate slaves, right? I'm not making this up. This is just history. So it's very hard to square that circle where Christianity is also the primary way that a lot of these enslaved people would find freedom. That like they're really using the tools that oppressed them, right? So it's very complicated. It's a very strange thing. And I'm not proposing any answers to this. I mean, I wish that African religions were given the same respect that Eastern religions are given, Again, voodoo is not evil. It's just another religion. It's no more or less evil than being an Episcopalian, okay? But anyways, so I don't know. I find this tension is present everywhere. And I think it's present And anytime anyone's talking about liberation ideology and using Christianity, when Christianity has been so often used as a tool to imprison and enslave. But again, that's not a Christian problem. That's a human problem. Most religions are used like that. Not all. Heart on Fire. I was listening to this album again today, after the game. Sitting there, super upset. Mbappe is better than Messi. I don't care what you say. I'm like, this is my favorite song. I swear Gorilla's my favorite song, but God, I love this beat. Great bass work. I believe Inflow plays everything, by the way. So the great drum, like he is a rhythm section unto himself. He has a great rhythm section unto himself, playing bass, playing drums, and this little quote, hearts on and it gets cut off. Again, kind of a cool Ye style trick, but it's just awesome the way hearts on like I want to stop this video and go to Tidal and pull up Lil Simz and listen to Hearts on Fire just so I can hear the guy go, Hearts on Fire. That's how much I love it. What I like about this is that the whole album has been, a lot about the need for self-care. It's been a lot about being abused, like through generational trauma and slavery and racism, sexism, classism, etc. But then it's also about like manipulation by the record companies, like by the entourage, by people who try to make money off of your name because you're famous. Here, she's taking responsibility. That it's her greed that's making her do this. We all start off so pure, do it for the love, nothing more. Nah, maybe to cop mom a house, but nothing more. Maybe to sort my cousin out, but nothing more. Maybe I'll get a new coupe, but nothing more. 15 to 100 shoes, nothing more. By the time you know it, that list will never start growing, and you don't know what you even do this for. My heart's on Awesome, right? Like, you start off pure, and then you're so driven by greed to just get more and more and more stuff and help out more and more people that she's actually taking responsibility. Then we get to the song Broken. You see, this is why I love this album so much. Because the album is released in such a nonchalant way, a song like this, which has the potential to feel like one of those all things to all people songs, just comes across nice. Almost like a children's chorus with a xylophone to start. When you're broken and you can't exist, when you're broken and you just can't fix, this beautiful theme, this hi-hat, this bass underneath, these just great vocals. Keeps saying all she wanted to do is uplift the women. It says it over and over again. And then there's a great point, like I think it's in the second verse or halfway through the first verse, where it's just a hi-hat and bass. But then like if you play a snare drum with a stick, you can hit the rim. So instead of going pa, it goes. It's just doing that, just a little quiet addition to the drum set, just a little quiet addition. Great lyrics, crabs in a barrel, all about generational trauma. They won't take the weight off you when you can't manage the load. They're just waiting because they can't to hear a effing crack in your bones. Generational trauma, you've had to deal with it alone. No father, how'd you become a man on your own? Did the best you could with the tools you were loaned. Don't know how to break the mold, now you're raising a clone. Why is mental health taboo in the black community? Just great. The whole thing, the tools on loan and just being broken, and just this idea of international blackness, right? Which is that's what this is, right? The French term was negritude, which is there's a whole French movement about sort of international blackness called negritude. Just look it up; it's interesting. This is kind of in that mode, right? Because these themes are themes that we see in American rap and in French rap and in English rap now too. But again, she doesn't drop the damn mic. You'd think she would drop the mic with mental health taboo in the black community, but she doesn't. No family to save you, no friends to aid you, can't even speak English, so there's no one to explain to, only God to pray to. So this is wonderful because it makes it more specific. This goes back to the whole larger point that I have about the benefits of immigration. Europe does not understand, in general, Europe does not understand the benefits of immigration in, say, the same way that America might. even though America doesn't always know it either. But, we are a nation of immigrants built on the blood of several people who we exterminated or enslaved. But still, we're a nation that understands on some level the value of immigration. Europe has been around for thousands and thousands and thousands of years, so they don't have the same relationship to it. So it's really important. Like music from Europe, made by people whose skin is not as pale as mine, has a added value to it. And I would say that this right here, this little point here, takes it out of the international question and makes it really, this is the experience of many immigrants. Can't speak English, so there's no one to explain to. This is that experience of the recent immigrant, who is often broken, often marginalized in society, treated as non-human, as being non-English, non-French, non-German, non-Hungarian, non-Italian. What are you? You don't live in Africa. You don't live in Europe. What are you? You're nothing. That's what you're told. No family to save you because your family's back in Africa. No friends to aid you because your friends are back in Africa. Can't even speak English. The empathy that she elicits in this song is so gorgeous because we've all felt broken. I felt broken, and I've had every societal privilege that can be thrown on a human being. But I've felt broken. We've all felt broken. I've all felt broken, like I can't exist, like I cannot fix. And here I am empathizing and feeling with these people whose experience is completely different than mine. And then Inflow drops the mic and picks it back up again with this crazy gospel outro that leads in to an absolutely drop-dead gorgeous orchestral arrangement. I don't understand how good this is. This is like beyond soundtrack quality, right? Like, this is just great orchestral music. This is not for a rap album, for a pop album. This is just great orchestral arrangement. Who the hell is Inflow? I mean, I know who Hit Boy is because he's made some of the greatest songs of all time, but like, who is this guy? He's so good. Feel free to tell me in the comments. Sideways has a really aggravating sample. It's his blaring voice. When you men have daughters, you'll see how important I am. It's true. I've been playing this album for my daughter for the past, 5 days. She really likes it. It's great because, again, like, there's a lot of great female rappers out there, but usually they end up having to define themselves on that sort of the spectrum that I mentioned it in the SZA video. Raw Digga refers to as the sex kitten or Nubian princess. Like, they have to sort of have one of these positions, whereas the goal, what I think, is that female rappers get to be, just hear me out, rappers. That they define themselves by the words that come out of their mouths and the themes that they are talking about, right? By their cadence, by their delivery. And Lil Simz is so important because that's what she is. She is neither defined by her sexuality, nor is she defined by not her sexuality. She's really not defining herself by that. So when I hear it, I am thankful. Because, I'm glad that my daughter likes Doja Cat. It's cool. It's cool. Like, I like Doja Cat too. I haven't reviewed her yet, but there's no part of me that's upset that my daughter can, like, rap an entire Doja Cat song. But, I'd probably rather her be able to do Gorilla all the way through. One thing, again, the beat is almost off. The hits are on 2 and 4, but Inflow puts them just behind. So if it's 1, 2, 3, 4, it's like this. Like, great. Who even cares? That's the connection. Remember I was talking about that little soulful part earlier in the album? This is it. It's just a singing song. Which, if you know anything about me, I've had a long, difficult relationship with R&B's presence in rap music. I'm generally against it. I generally don't want people singing. I don't care if it's Drake or Missy or Nicki Minaj. I don't want them singing. Unless it's Biz Markie or Old Dirty Bastard. They somehow don't bother me when they sing. But I've come a long way on that. I now understand that's just a weird, probably just a sexist bias. But this is great because it comes at just the right time in the album. She's singing very sort of realist themes. By that I mean social realism, talking about people in lower classes, people having their night shift. And I love how she sings a little bit, then Cleo Sol comes back in. It's not even trying to be rap. It's beautiful. It's placed perfectly just before the end of the album, and I absolutely love this song. It's a song which, if you played it for me individually, I'd be like, that's fine. But in the context of this truly impressive album, it really works. Next song is called Control. Is that a reference to SZA's first album? I don't know. A straight up gospel voice to start, but with piano underneath. And that's like a love song. I don't know how I feel about a love song at the end of this album. Maybe it's good because, no, I'm changing my mind. I was going to say that I don't like it, but I'm actually wrong. I do like it. I'll tell you why. Because Lil Simz has it rough. She's very alienated. She's underpaid. According to her. I don't know her real life, right? According to her, she's underpaid. She has to deal with prejudice for her sex, prejudice for her race, prejudice for her country of origin, or whatever, her culture of origin. And she's alienated and lonely. So ending with a positive love song is actually kind of nice because it means that maybe she's able to go to therapy, she's able to figure out boundaries, and she's able to put herself in a position to be lucky enough to be in a good relationship. Because if you're in a good relationship, you're partly lucky, and then you've partly done a lot of work. So maybe that's what this is. Maybe this is this. The album might be too bleak without this ending here. One thing I will say is in flow, again, just the way he's recording this singer, it's like the microphone is over there. It's next to the bookshelf. And this guy is just singing. And it has the room tone. It's just totally in. It's beautiful. It really sounds really nice. I give you my passion and key to my soul. Sometimes when you have trauma, you think trauma will arrive at any time. I really like this because this is talking about the difficulty of being in a good relationship when you've been in bad relationships, when you've been in traumatic relationships. I have been in traumatic relationships, okay? And there's a part of you when you're with your next partner that you're just waiting for the shoe to drop. You're waiting for the trauma, the abuse, the mistreatment to start. That's a sad fact of life. Some people can't get out of it. Some people get hurt, abused, traumatized, and then they start their next relationship. And even if that isn't there, they're so afraid of it, they build up walls, not boundaries, but walls, okay? And isolate themselves and abort a relationship before it can really form. So she's addressing this directly. Looking through a wabi-sabi lens so I have a wabi-sabi view. Just a great line. I like that. Saying she can't really see things, that things are a little bit off. And she's really emphasizing that the fight is still on. But it seems as though, at least at this point, she is winning. So there's my review. Was it worth all the clickbait? Tell me in the comments. These are my Patreons. Got some new ones. Also, do you know what I do? Sometimes, not every time, I will post on my Patreon page, who wants a shout out? And I don't care. You can be one of these hot shots up here giving me like mucho buxo every year, or you can be at the lowest tier. I don't care. So T. Verga, Chris Marin, Andrew Thompson, at Large O'Tour, they all wanted shout outs because they really like Lil Simz and they're happy I'm reviewing. So that's the thing you can get when you're a Patreon. And you give money to buy music. And I think I will buy this album. I didn't buy the last one, but I think I will. All right. Whew. Well, as always, invest in art. Mental health for all. There's the camera.